Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Erica, and I am the Lopsided Crafter. You can find me on all the socials as Lopsided Crafter or The Lopsided Crafter, and we have our own website, thelopsidedcrafter.com. Today, I'm going to show you how to read the double basket weave stitch pattern. This is a knit-specific stitch pattern that we are going to use for our loom, but it is easily translated into needle knitting as well. The stitch pattern for this particular pattern is 18 stitches plus 10. I have added 4 additional stitches to this repeat, or this chart, if you will. We have our first and our last set of stitches, which represent either our skip stitch or our turn knit stitch. We have 1 additional row here of plain knits on either side. So let's go over the actual key so that you can see what the chart stitches represent. So looking at this, we can see that our plain knit, our plain box stitch right here represents the knit stitch. And in this particular pattern, I am using the E-wrap knit. The little dot inside of the box represents a purl, and that is the same for both knitting, needle knitting, and loom knitting. Disregard the gray. That would be used if you are doing a pattern with increases. That would represent a no stitch, so that the program knows how to count the chart and make sure that everything is working correctly. The red box represents the stitches that are within the box that are your actual stitch repeat. The V stitch for loom knitting is a skip stitch. Then we have our 2 stitches here, which is a turn knit stitch. So let's go back over here to our chart. Again, the stitches within this red box are your actual stitch repeat. Then you have your additional 10 stitches. So that means that the actual chart, in order to make it work fluidly, is 18 plus 10. But again, I added an extra row here and here, and an extra row at the ends of both sides to represent our skip stitches and our turn stitches. I am right-handed, so I tend to work the odd rows from right to left and the even rows from left to right. So I would start over here and work this way, and then the next row would be worked in the opposite direction. Because we do not turn our work for loom knitting, the direction that I work, the odd rows are considered the right side, and the even rows would be considered the wrong side. If you are left-handed, you may or may not work in the opposite direction, which means if you do, your odd rows would be from left to right, and your even rows would be right to left. Because this is a row pattern, and it is not an actual picture of Intarsia or Fair Isle or something of that nature, working in the opposite direction will not change the overall look of the design. So, with the instructions below that are provided with Stitch Fiddle, this represents 32 stitches, this whole chart. Okay. So starting at row 1 with this particular chart, what we see is our first stitch is a skip stitch. That means we're not going to work it. We're going to work 12 stitches in the knit, 2 pearls, 2 knits, 2 pearls, and then 12 knits, and then we are going to turn knit, which means we'll have it ready to go, the yarn ready to go in the next direction. So then if we go to row 2, we're going to skip that first stitch. We're going to knit 2, purl 8, knit 2, purl 2, times 2. So we have a knit 2, purl 2 times 2. So that is knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. Then we have knit 2, purl 8, knit 2, and then turn. Okay. So this chart represents 1 repeat, which means we're doing this 1 time. Okay. I try to include any charts that I have made on Stitch Fiddle. I try to include those into my patterns so that you can follow along. If you go up here to the top, you'll see the bottom panel. If you click that, that bottom shows up with your written instructions. And if you click this little marker guy, you can follow along row by row just by clicking up and or down. So as I said, this particular chart is just for 1 repeat, which would be 32 stitches. If you're using, say, worsted weight yarn and you're wanting to make a scarf, the 32 stitches would give you a nice size stitch repeat for a scarf. Okay, say you're looking at this chart and it's for a blanket and you have a 200 peg loom. This down here shows you that 194 pegs will be used on that loom. Okay. It also shows you right here, this section right here, which I don't think it'll let me highlight, but this knit 11, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 1, which is this right here, this first row in this box. You would repeat that first row 10 times. Then you would do the rest of the row. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So basically what you're doing is you're repeating what's within this box 10 times to get to the actual blanket width. And then you do your final 11 stitches. And then your turn stitch. Okay, so let's go up to row 2 and show you the difference. So because these stitches are not part of your stitch repeat, when you go to row 2, your first stitch is a skip stitch. Then you're going to work your knit 2, purl 8, knit 1. Then your next stitch starts your stitch repeat. So then you will work this part of row 2 10 more times. Then you would knit 1 and turn it. So that's how you read a stitch chart if you have multiple repeats within the chart. It makes it easier so the designer does not have to repeat these stitches 10 times in the chart and make the chart very, very huge. Okay. So say you have a pattern in front of you and it's this particular chart and the repeat is 10. You're repeating these 18 stitches 10 times. Say you actually want to do it 11 and you want to determine exactly how many pegs that you need to add that additional repeat. Well, you know that there's 18 stitches in that repeat. So you would do 18 times 11 would be 198 stitches, okay? So 198 stitches would be in that repeat by itself. Then you would add these two, which would give you 200. Then you would add your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches that represent this whole other side. So your blanket would be 212 pegs wide. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense. On the flip side, if you don't want to do 10 repeats and you only want to do 6, then you would do the same thing. You would just times these 18 by 6 and then add your additional pegs on, either side based on what your chart says. And that would give you how many stitches that you have to cast on. So I hope this helps. I hope that you have learned how to read a stitch pattern. And if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And until next time, happy looming. Bye.